The path to becoming the true man we were meant to be begins with a conscious effort to break away from external expectations, many of which we put on ourselves. And it involves looking into the mirror and discovering the authentic core beneath. This journey often requires stepping out of the comfort zone, embracing vulnerability, and confronting the fears that may have held us back. Welcome to the True Man Podcast. This is an invitation to radical reconstruction of a man's masculine heart and soul, and a place of safe community where we dare to ask questions deep seated inside a man and explore ways to help you become a better man, a better son, a better dad, and a better spouse. Well, a special add on to my typical beginning. Good morning. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Do you recognize that? Well, thank you for joining me today. Let's have some fun on today's show. Now, do you like movies? And who doesn't, right? So, good morning. And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night is actually from the 1998 movie, The Truman Show. Now, I hear you now. Why are you talking about a movie that came out in 1998? Well, great question. Thanks for asking. And, this started out actually out of curiosity. And if you have a business or you're doing things online, I'm sure you realize that SEO and all the analytics behind Google searches, well, it's a big deal. Now, if you do a search on True Man Coaching, it's not unusual for the Truman Show movie to pop up as well. And so when I was having a conversation with somebody about this, they suggested that I take the time to watch the movie. I hadn't seen it, believe it or not. And I thought, well, that's not a bad idea. And I love Jim Carrey, and I can really appreciate how he gets into his characters. He's just an amazing actor, quite honestly. You know, the beautiful part of movies in many, many cases is how they parallel life and what's going on in the world around us. And many times it really strikes a chord personally. And I love using movie clips in some of my men's groups specifically because I found it to be a great icebreaker that people can relate to. So let's play this out today and talk about the Truman Show movie versus living a true man life. So so let's talk about this a little bit and talk about some reflection of watching the movie The Truman Show and it's how it parallels with the real world. So the Truman Show was directed by a guy named Peter Weir, and it's really this thought-provoking narrative and profound exploration of existential. Now I had to look that up because I'm not smart. That means existential, meaning concerned with the nature of human existence and themes. Now, this film, as I mentioned, was released in 1998 and really has become kind of this timeless metaphor for the complexities of the human existence in the real world. Today, I'm going to examine the Truman Show and how it symbolically mirrors the lives of men in the real world, addressing aspects of media manipulation, society expectations, individual autonomy, and the quest for authenticity, namely around your identity. So let's start with this idea of media manipulation and the perception of reality. Boy, none of that going on these days, right? Now, at the heart of the Truman Show lies the manipulation of reality through the lens of media. So, this character, Truman Burbanks, played by Jim Carrey, his entire life is broadcast for the world's entertainment and it highlighting this omnipresent influence of the media in shaping perceptions. And similarly, in the real world, individuals are bombarded with information from various sources and influences that shape your beliefs, your values, and even your sense of self, right? I mean, you see this all the time. So the film serves as a poignant reminder of the need to critically examine the narratives presented to us in life and question the authenticity of our experiences. Now, essentially, Truman is the only character in the story of his life where everyone around him is an actor. It's actually cool to watch this play out. And initially, Truman is the only one that does not realize he's essentially in a reality TV story about him. So let's take a deeper look at the impact of media manipulation on men and their families. In today's world, as you're well aware, the media holds immense power in shaping our perceptions and our beliefs and even our realities. In fact, I would dare say that much of the media is lying to you in order to control you. And I hope you see that. I hope you realize that. As is the case with Truman, there is a fight for control of your soul. And if you don't dig in and do your own research, you will be manipulated by the media. Now, this goes with that herd mentality as well that many people have. That is not a good way to live. Hence, look at the COVID debacle. This was mishandled from start to finish, and you were lied to from start to finish by the very people who are supposed to be there to protect you. And in fact, you can look this up. Don't believe me. The CDC has just reduced COVID to the flu, which ironically is what it was before people had all this crap got started in the first place. In the medical dictionary, defined as flu. Now the CDC has pushed it back to where it is because that narrative is gone. And in addition to that, let's address the elephant in the room, which is the portrayal of men in the media. Often men are depicted as either hyper masculine figures or bumbling fools with little room for nuance or complexity. Now, these stereotypes are not only limited to the way men see themselves, but also influence how we are perceived by others. As young boys, we grow up internalizing these types of images, leading to a real distorted sense of masculinity that can be damaging to our self esteem and to our relationships because much of what's on television has been feminized. Moreover, the constant bombardment of unrealistic standards of success and masculinity can put an immense amount of pressure on men. You've probably felt this. Now, whether it's the chiseled bodies of the action heroes we see in the movies or the extravagant lifestyles of celebrities or people on social media, men are constantly made to feel inadequate if they don't measure up. And this can lead to feelings of insecurity, anxiety, and depression as we struggle to live up to what is essentially impossible ideals in a lot of cases. But it's not just men who suffer when we feel this way, it's our families who are also deeply affected by this media manipulation. And the portrayal, for example, of gender roles in the media can create unrealistic expectations within our relationships, leading to conflicts, misunderstandings, and that type of thing. Women may feel pressured to conform to traditional roles while men feel inadequate if they don't fit into the mold of the strong, stoic provider. And hence, you see this kind of rubbernecking going on in our society where there's a fight for a man to be a man and a woman to be a woman, and it's really caused inflammation of some of these feminists to get out and say that all men are toxic and bad. And furthermore, the proliferation of misinformation that has gone on in the media and come out of Hollywood can have serious consequences on families, whether it's this false health claims, political propaganda going on, or sensationalized news stories, because as you're well aware, everything's breaking news. And the spread of this misinformation can sow seeds of doubt and division within households. And I'm sure you've seen this happen because it erodes trust and communication and creates rifts that are very difficult to mend. So, what can be done to combat the effects of all this media manipulation that's going on in men and with their families? Well, awareness is the first step. By critically examining the media and where you get your sources and what you consume and questioning the media's motives, we can begin to break free from some of its influences. It's also important for men to seek out support from friends, family, coaches like myself, or mental health professionals if they need it, especially if they're struggling with issues related to not being able to understand what's going on in this media heavy world. And by media, I mean everything like social media, what you're watching on television. There's just a lot of skewed stuff out there. Now, let's talk a little bit about societal expectations and conformity from the Truman movie. Now, Truman's artificial world is meticulously crafted to conform to societal expectations, mirroring the individuals face to adhere to predefined norms in the real world. So the film prompts viewers to reflect on their own lives and the extent to which societal expectations influences their choices, their careers, their relationships, and their personal identities. Now, Truman's journey becomes a universal metaphor for this struggle against conformity in the quest for individual authenticity amidst societal pressures. Now, what about you as a man? Does your world feel artificial and specially crafted outside of your control? Many men are meticulously crafted to conform to societal expectations from a young age, subjected to a relentless barrage of messages dictated on how they should look, act, and think. From the toys they play with to the roles they see portrayed in movies and TV shows, the pressure to adhere to predefined norms is omnipresent. And society dictates that men should be strong, stoic, and emotionally restrained, leaving little room for authenticity and vulnerability or introspection. Now, this relentless conditioning begins in childhood and really continues throughout our lives, shaping our beliefs, behaviors, and our sense of self. Now, men typically are expected to excel in their careers, provide for their families, and maintain a facade of invulnerability, even in the face of adversity. Now, those who deviate from these norms, well, they're often met with ridicule, scorn, or outright rejection, further reinforcing the need to conform. Don't fall for that. I don't fall for that. As somebody who's doing the True Man podcast and has True Man Life coaches, it's not unusual for somebody to contact me and try to get me to conform to their narrative. And I'm not falling for it, because there is a constant pressure by some to try to fit into a narrow mold that can leave you suffocating and leaving men feeling trapped and disconnected from their true selves. However, breaking free from these expectations requires courage and resilience, as well as a willingness to challenge the status quo, which is exactly what I'm doing, even by doing this podcast today, and to embrace my masculine authenticity. And I want you to embrace your masculine authenticity. So, how do we change this trajectory? Men can start by solving this problem by questioning and challenging societal norms and expectations. It's up to us, man. And it's crucial to recognize that strength isn't solely defined by such things as physical prowess, and vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. Now, embracing authenticity and allowing ourselves to express a full range of emotions is how men can break free from this suffocating constraint of traditional masculinity. Building a support network of friends, family, or professionals, a men's small group can provide you a safe space to explore your true self without fear or judgment. And I 100% encourage you to go looking for it. And ultimately, Ultimately, it's about reclaiming control over our own narratives and defining masculinity on your own terms to become the true man that you want to be and how you define that true man. Now, let's take a look at individual autonomy and self discovery from the movie Truman Show. Now, as Truman begins to question the boundaries of his world, the film dives into the theme of individual autonomy. His desire is to break free, his desire to break free really reflects the human instinct to discover one's true self and pursue a life of genuine fulfillment. Now, in the real world, individuals grapple with challenges of navigating their own paths, free from external expectations. The Truman Show movie encourages viewers to contemplate the choices they make and the authenticity of the existence in a world that may impose limitations. Men, if you want to find your true self, let's talk. Let's face it, we live in a world that is often perceives vulnerability as a weakness. And the fear of judgment, rejection, or ridicule makes us wear masks hiding behind a facade of strength. Now, this fear not only inhibits personal growth, but also strains relationships as we struggle to express authentic emotions, okay? The societal expectations to appear unyielding further exasperate this issue. But here's the kicker: the true strength lies in vulnerability. It's the raw, unfiltered version of you that forms the basis of genuine connections. Now, by embracing vulnerability, you open up doors to profound relationships, self discovery, and a life lived authentically. Now, in the gritty reality of our world, vulnerability is frequently misconstrued as a weakness, crack in the armor that society deems unacceptable. The prevailing fear of judgment, rejection, or mockery coerces us into donning masks, shrouding our genuine selves behind a facade of stoic strength. Now, it's the charade that not only stunts our personal evolution, but also strains the very fabric of our relationships as we grapple with this challenge of expressing authentic emotions in a world that often values a tough exterior over genuine connection. The societal pressure to appear unyielding, to adhere to rigid script of masculinity, only intensifies this struggle. Now, have you felt the intensity of this struggle? Here's the hard truth: true strength, the kind that withstands the storms of life, is found not in the illusion of invincibility, but in the courage to be vulnerable. It's about stripping away the layers of pretense, exposing the raw, unfiltered version of yourself that forms the bedrock of genuine connections. Now, the irony is that the very thing society deems a weakness is, in fact, the key to unlocking profound relationships, self discovery, and a life lived authentically. Now, to address the problem of forsaking our true selves in favor of societal expectations, men must confront the ingrained notion that vulnerability equals weakness. It requires a paradigm shift, a redefinition of strength that recognizes the resilience found in authenticity. Now, this is not a call of abandoning strength, but it is a call to redefine it, acknowledging that a man's true power is revealed in his ability to navigate the complexities of his emotions, confront challenges head on, and forge connection that withstands the test of time. Now, embracing vulnerability is a multifaceted journey, as you might imagine. And it starts with an honest self assessment, a courageous examination of the mask we wear and the reasons behind them. Now, this journey demands a willingness to peel back the layers, to expose the vulnerabilities, that make us human. And it's about acknowledging that true strength is not in the absence of weakness, in the ability to confront and learn from them. Navigating the terrain of authenticity really requires resilience in the face of societal expectations. It's a rebellious act against the prescribed norms of stoicism and emotional detachment. Breaking free from the suffocating expectations of unyielding exterior, men can discover the liberating power of vulnerability. Now, this isn't about bearing one's soul to the world indiscriminately. It's about choosing when and where to unveil the authentic self, creating a space for genuine connections to flourish. Creating space for vulnerability transforms relationships from superficial interactions into profound connection. And authenticity becomes a magnet that draws like minded individuals, fostering bonds built on mutual understanding and acceptance. The richness of these connections, forged in the crucible of vulnerability, far surpasses the superficial exchanges that occur when wearing the mask of societal expectations. Now, let's move on to navigating life authentically. Men must recognize that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. I mentioned this, but it's a testament to courage and authenticity. It's an acknowledgement that the true self, unshackled from societal constraints, is a force to be reckoned with. In dismantling this illusion of invulnerability, men can discover a reservoir of strength that empowers them to confront challenges, cultivate meaningful relationships, and live a life that reflects the unfiltered truth of who they are. The path to authenticity is not without challenges, though, men. You need to know this. But it is in facing them head on, men can reclaim their true selves and redefine strength on their own terms. Now, the Truman Show movie also addresses the craziness of surveillance, society, and privacy concerns. Now, keep in mind, again, this movie's 20 years old. So some of the stuff that goes on is pretty incredible given the advancement of technology, because long before the rise of social media and widespread surveillance, the Truman Show, again, 20 years old, hinted at the implications of living in a society where privacy is compromised for the sake of entertainment. Now, Truman's life is under constant surveillance, reflecting contemporary concerns about the erosion of privacy in our world. And the film's foresight resonates with the modern discourse on surveillance and the trade offs between privacy and the desire for connection and entertainment. Good grief. Again, this movie was 20 years old, but if you watch it, you will see very much how it reflects modern day society, despite the fact we didn't have all this technology 20 years ago that we have now. But what about you? How do you show up in the world? If you think we are not under widespread surveillance, you have your head in the sand, man. How many times have you been having a conversation with somebody only to have an advertisement show up on your social media Facebook page? Man, Big Brother is alive and well, man. Watching your steps and being discerning about what's going on in the world is something you need to take complete control of. So, back to Truman's the Truman Show movie as well, and this idea of existential reflections. So Truman's journey becomes an existential exploration, inviting viewers to ponder the fundamental question of their existence. And this film prompts us to confront our own lives, choices, and the pursuit of meaning in the world that may sometimes feel scripted or predetermined. And by unraveling Truman's quest for authenticity, The Truman Show becomes a mirror reflecting this existential dilemma faced by individuals seeking purpose and self discovery. Now, what kind of introspection do you have in your life? Introspection is this compass that guides you through the vast terrain of your identity. It's not about judging yourself, but understanding yourself, the quirks, the passions, and the fears. This knowledge becomes the cornerstone of your authenticity, enabling you to make choices aligned with your true self. Think of introspection as holding up a mirror to your soul. What reflects back is not just a face, but a myriad of experiences, emotions, and aspirations. It's about recognizing the patterns in your thoughts and understanding why certain things trigger joy or discomfort, and acknowledging the narratives that shape your perception. The reason this reflection matters is because it acts as the bridge between your conscious and subconscious mind, and it unveils the layers of your identity that may have been obscured by the noise of external influences. Now, this clarity empowers you to consciously shape your identity rather than being a passive recipient of societal expectations. Now, you may say, wow, this is a lot to take in. And it's understandable if you find the concept of introspection overwhelming. It's indeed a substantial concept to absorb. And I've personally struggled with the power of the subconscious mind has over past events and traumas that sit in the back of our minds and keep us hostage, stuck in a virtual prison. Now, here's an important point from a so called recovering perfectionist. I need you to embrace imperfections. In the quest for self awareness, perfection is not the goal. Embrace the imperfections, the scars, and the untidy corners of your identity. They tell you a story of growth, resilience, and the beautiful messiness that makes you human. Now, I talk about this on the podcast today because I want you to embrace imperfection. There was a time when embracing vulnerability and imperfection wasn't much of an option for me. Not so many years ago, I would have never attempted to write a book or host a podcast. You certainly would have never seen me talk about my story and express what it feels like and what I do on the True Man podcast. Now, you may be asking what shifted. Well, getting involved in men's small group was certainly a major shift because in those groups, we didn't focus who won Saturday's game or our favorite restaurant. Yeah, well, those things came up, but we spent more time focused on our feelings, our goals, our families, our careers, and what really mattered. We talked about how there was an alternative to flipping someone off in traffic and how to deal with our anger, for example. And what I realized is when you surround yourself with supportive individuals who encourage growth, you create an environment conducive to discovering your authentic and vulnerable self. And acknowledging this imperfection allows a man to be vulnerable and open up about his shortcomings. And this is an important aspect of life. This authenticity fosters genuine connection with others, as people are often drawn to those who are real and relatable. Can you see that? In addition to that, you have to be willing to put in the work with yourself and embrace imperfection that can lead you towards an authentic masculine life. Now, what are some of the ways that you can do that? Well, recognize that you will make mistakes. Those mistakes are opportunities to learn and grow. And embracing imperfections means accepting that mistakes and failures are a natural part of life. And this mindset encourages continuous learning and personal growth, as men can use setbacks as opportunities for improvement rather than viewing them as threats to their masculinity. And in fact, embracing imperfections allows men to be more authentic and genuine. And when individuals accept and showcase their flaws, it communicates a sense that others can relate to. And this authenticity fosters deeper connections and allows men to express their true thoughts and emotions without fear of judgment. Now, when you do this, you position yourself to create healthier relationships and you acknowledge imperfections, foster healthier relationships, and it allows men to communicate openly and honestly, creating a foundation of trust. Inauthenticity or fear of showing imperfections may lead to strained relationships and cause you to create a fake it till you make it mentality. Not good. However, when you embrace being real and open, what you do is set the stage for cultivating healthier relationships. Acknowledging imperfection opens up the door to deeper conversations in your relationships. And in fact, the openness and transparency you begin to display will develop into the bedrock of trust people come to know and appreciate about you. Now, does that reduce societal expectations and the unrealistic standards of perfections that some men feel? Maybe not. I have personally struggled with this, and I believe many men do as well. And there is a lot of pressure on men to behave, look, or feel a certain way because they're men. Take, for example, that physical appearance that I talked about earlier. Being short or overweight or non athletic doesn't make you any less of a man than someone who is tall, muscular, or has a chiseled jaw. Yet the phrase tall, dark, and handsome has stood the test of time for what we should measure up to. Another example is the traditional gender norms that discourage men from expressing that vulnerability. And we talked about this. Embracing your imperfection is going to be what liberates a man from the pressures to conform or measure up to these societal standards. And what we're really talking about is having self compassion for yourself instead of being overly critical or judgmental about yourself or others. It's far more important to develop more understanding and having a forgiving attitude toward yourself, leading to an improved mental well being. And when you embrace the fact that you won't win every game, win every business proposal, or hit every green light when you're driving, you open yourself up to enjoy life's little moments. Yes, it means that you may have to take a loss or you may make a mistake, but at least you tried. You gave it a shot. And it may not turn out well or it may not turn out at all, but it opens you up to the question, what will I do differently next time? So embracing imperfection opens you up to an authentic expression of yourself. And for a man to have an authentic expression of themselves means he is true to his own thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and values. And it involves being genuine and sincere in his interactions with others without putting on a facade or conforming to societal expectations or stereotypes of masculinity. And this authenticity will allow you to express your emotions, desires, and vulnerabilities openly without fear of rejection. Now, ultimately, having an authentic expression of oneself as a man means being true to oneself and living in alignment with your core values and beliefs. And in essence, living in alignment with your core values and beliefs is likely going to cause you to experience a more purposeful, authentic, and satisfying life. It's that ongoing process of reflection, self discovery, and intentional decision making that we talk about, that I talk about quite a bit, that's going to help you live the life you want. Now, as I begin to wrap up today's podcast, the Truman Show is really this metaphoric looking glass into the lives of men in the real world. It is a look into the false identity and your true self. And through its exploration of media manipulation, societal expectations, and individual autonomy and existential themes, that film invites you to the question of authenticity and your own experiences in life. And it encourages a deeper reflection on the complexity of the human existence. Now, as Truman Burbank discovers the truth beyond the confines of his artificial world, so too many individuals find inspiration to break free from the constraints that limit their pursuit of truly authentic lives. Discovering oneself And uncovering true purpose is a journey that requires introspection and self reflection and a willingness to explore the depths of one's own being. The path to becoming the true man we were meant to be begins with a conscious effort to break away from external expectations, many of which we put on ourselves. And it involves looking into the mirror and discovering the authentic core beneath. This journey often requires stepping out of the comfort zone, embracing vulnerability, and confronting the fears that may have held us back. So, engaging in self discovery means taking the time to understand our values, passions, and beliefs. It involves asking ourselves profound questions about what truly matters to us and what brings us joy and what we envision for our lives. And this process may involve trying new experiences, learning from failures, and being open to change. And it's about acknowledging that the journey of self discovery it's ongoing with each stage of life, offering new insight and opportunities for growth. So, finding your purpose is often intertwined with that type of understanding. And it's about aligning our skills and our talents with a greater sense of purpose, whether that be in our personal relationships, our careers, or contributing to the well being of others. Ultimately, becoming the true man we were meant to be requires authenticity and living in alignment with our true selves and our values. And it evolves from the courage to stand firm in our convictions. The true man that you want to be, it's not a static concept, it's a dynamic, evolving thing that requires self discovery. So, what does a more meaningful and purposeful existence look like? Well, do you want to find out what Truman found out in his life? All you have to do is reach out to me for a free initial call at mike@truemanlifecoaching.com. Don't live a life with a false identity like Truman did at the beginning of the movie. Live the way Truman did when he walked away towards the tail end of the movie and be the true man and develop an identity entrenched in yourself, in your true self. Now, I don't know if today's podcast made you want to run out and watch the movie. I hope you did. And I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of the movie and how a movie like The Truman Show really shows up very truthfully in our own worlds. So I hope you enjoyed my breakdown of the movie. I would encourage you to go out and watch it. I got a couple of movie clips that I put in the show notes if you're not familiar with this movie. And but again, I would encourage you to watch this movie and think about how this type of movie plays out in your own life. So until next week, by the way, if you enjoyed this show, please leave me a great review on your favorite podcast channel.